Hello guys, Norbert here, and today I wanted to bring you a deck guide for Metalfoes. So this deck in Duel Links has basically taken over the KC Cup. A lot of people were surprised. I've been playing this for Duel Level Max and also for my Stage 2. And I had great success with it, played it a lot, and figured out a couple of lines. Also talked to a lot of people. Shout out to Yobro, Maiko, and Neg1. And I thought I would give you a small guide on how to play this deck because I think this deck definitely has tiered potential and a lot of people were sleeping on it, but not anymore it seems. So let's hop into the deck profile. Um, for this deck, this is one of the lists that made top 10, I think, card for card. So what we do is we run 1 Rescue Hamster and 3 Rescue Rabbit. Why these ratios is because Rescue Rabbit just provides you with 2 bodies, no downside, no setup. That's why you run it. And Rescue Hamster also can provide you with extra monsters, but you have to do a little setup. I will show you later how to do that. And also, if you draw both, then you still can do combos with it. It's even better if you draw both. We'll show you that too. For the monsters, we have 3 of everyone. Gold Driver is an Altaria, so if you only have 2, I also only played with 2, that's fine. You can get away with 2, but 3 is definitely optimal. And the rest is just maxed out just for a lot of redundancy. They all do the same. They all just pop a card and set a Metalfoes card. For the spells, we want run of Metalfoes Fusion. Obviously, it's at 1, so we only can play 1. And I started the KC Cup with 1 Metalfoes Fusion, but bumped it up to 2 because a lot of people were playing DD Crow because of the Gandora matchup, and this also hurts the grind game of this deck a lot if you only have 1 Metalfoes Fusion and it gets banished. So you just play a second one and can also help you with some combo lines later. Then we also run 1 Painful Decision. This can search you either Gold Driver, Silvered, or Steelen. Why do we only run when it searches basically everything? It's once per turn. So if you draw 2 Painful Decision, it's basically a dead card in your hand, and a lot of things you have to do with this deck. You want to use every card in your hand for maximum potential. So only 1 Painful Decision. For the skill, we run Light Barrier. This basically just gives us a card to pop with our Metalfoes, so we can set up the fusion. Other field spell skills are worse than Light Barrier because Light Barrier actually only triggers on your turn. So if your opponent goes first and you play Paw of Dark, for example, they can, for example, go Harpy's Hunting Ground, play a Harpy, destroy a field spell, and suddenly you're -1. Whereas Light Barrier just goes on your turn, so they cannot do that. Some other decks you can run. I ran a Steel Swarm Roach in this deck because with Rescue Rabbit into Gold Driver, you can just set it up, and you should have enough resources to still set up all the other plays. And Steel Swarm Roach, why this is because it's very, very strong against Gandora because they cannot levy you, they cannot Gandora you. They have to somehow swing over the Steel Swarm Roach, but you can protect it with your other Metalfoes monsters. So that's why I ran the Steel Swarm Roach over the second Alcast. Another package you can run is Foucault's Cannon. This is a low scale with level 5, so that enables you playing Summoner's Art. Summoner's Art in this deck would only search the Wolflame, but if you run the one-off Cannon, Summoner's Art suddenly works as both a searcher for a high scale and a low scale. I actually ran this package instead of the third Gold Driver, and I think I ran over 20 cards in that case because I don't have the third Gold Driver, so that's definitely something you can do. Downside of it is Foucault's Cannon is not a Metalfoes, so you cannot use it to get to your cards, obviously. Cards I would not recommend to run would be Box of Friends with as a Rescue Rabbit replacement. It's in the same box as the Metalfoes, but the only Metalfoe with 0 attack or defense is Steelen, so you need to have another penned monster that has these stats, and the only other one would be Draco Slayer, I think, the only good one. And this is, I think, a selection box card first, and secondly, it's a brick if you draw it. It doesn't do anything on its own. It doesn't work with your engine, so you just play a brick to enable this, even though it gets a lot of value because if you pop it, you get a fusion and 2 bodies. It's generally not worth because it's also very vulnerable to being disrupted because Box of Friends plus a Metalfoe loses to both a Book of Moon and an MST, whereas Rescue Rabbit only loses to 1 Book of Moon. So there's that. And lastly, Metalfoes Counter. I think you ran that before as like your protection play, but now that we have full Metalfoes fusion, you always want to have this set, and you only have 3 zones. We don't play the pentascale skill, so we use the middle zone for the full Metalfoes fusion, and just floating doesn't advance our game plan enough to warrant it. All right, that's it for the deck profile, so let's jump into some combos. First combo I wanted to show you is just the first setup combo. In the combos, I wanted to keep it as simple as possible, so I only include the rabbit lines if you want to show you a rabbit combo. For the other combos, I just say, okay, we only drew Metalfoes cards, just to keep it simple. So in this case, we open 4 Metalfoes. We use one of the Metalfoes to pop our field spell. Which one you use here depends on what scales you have and which ones do you want to use. Note that the one you play first, you will pop later on in the turn. So try to play one that you want on the extra deck. In this case, with this hand, I have only one low scale, and I have Wolflame, and Wolflame is very good from the extra deck because it's the highest attack. So I started with Wolflame, pop the Light Barrier to get Fusion. Now, I normal summon one of the monsters, in this case the Steelen. It's another high scale, we want to keep the low scale. These are the only normal summons, so we normal summon the Steelen. Usually I would like to normal summon like Silvered or Gold Driver here, but we need the Silvered for the low scale. So we fuse that and the Wolflame that we don't need to go into Orichalc. You can also go into Mithrilium, depends on what you want to accomplish with this board. So Orichalc is, if it goes to the grave, it pops a card, so it's not a disruption. Mithrilium, if it goes to the grave, it summons back a Metalfoes from the grave or the extra deck, so depends on whether you want to pop or float, you go into that card. In this case, I like to play aggressively. I usually go to Orichalc, so do that. You use the Metalfoes fusion, draw a card, play the other scale, pop. First we pen summon, that's why we played it like this, so we get the free +1 of the pen summon. Then we pop the other scale to get the full Metalfoes fusion, and now we set up. During the opponent's turn, if we see something that has to be popped, we can go full Metalfoes fusion, Orichalc, and Steelen. Put these away for Alcahest, and then the Orichalc will pop a card, and you also have the Alcahest to yoink a monster of your opponent, equip it to it, and that's 2 disruptions. If the opponent just ends up setting Backrow and a monster, you don't go into Alcahest obviously because it can only equip effect monsters, so they have to be face up. You would probably go into Mithrilium, pop the Backrow, and during your turn use Mithrilium effect to bounce the monster. But this is the standard combo, 2 disruptions, very, very strong. You have follow-up play because you have a low scale, high scale, you have the extra deck set up, and your graveyard is also set up for Mithrilium. So let's go into the next combo. This is the Rescue Hamster combo. So why did I skip the Rescue Rabbit? Rescue Rabbit basically only makes your normal combo better due to giving you 2 bodies in one. So it plays out the same, except that you, instead of normal summoning Metalfoes, you normal summon the rabbit, and both monsters that you got off the rabbit you fuse. So I didn't think that was worth showing here, so we just go to the Rescue Hamster combo. So activate the field spell with skill, Gold Driver, get full Metalfoes fusion in this case. It's important to first go to full Metalfoes fusion here, because the way Duel Links works is you cannot place the cards you want. So what ends up happening if you just like, if you now would get the full Metalfoes fusion, you would pop this card, and full Metalfoes fusion would land in the pen zone, clogging it up, which that's something you don't want. You need it in the middle zone. So what you do is you pop the other scale now, and you get the Metalfoes fusion here, the normal one. Because you can activate this right away, you cannot activate this right away because it's a quick spell that has been set. So keep that in mind. We set the Metalfoes fusion, and now we have the Gold Driver in the extra deck. So you can normal summon the Rescue Hamster and use its effect, put it in the extra deck, and special 2 Gold Drivers from our deck. Now we can fuse these together, go into Orichalc, and now we just continue the combo from here. We actually drew a rabbit here, but we just pretend we didn't because I just wanted to show you the normal combo. Obviously, you can actually pen summon the rabbit and extend from there, but this just ends up on the same board. But now we have 1 extra card, as you can see. In the last combo, we had a scale in hand, so low scale, high scale, and then nothing here. But now we have like low scale, high scale on board, and follow-up play in hand. All right. Next combo. This is Rescue Rabbit and Rescue Hamster. I told you in the beginning that they work well together. Usually they just give you more resources, but also, and like I wanted to show you a case where, as you can see in this hand, we have one full Metalfoes fusion in hand, which we usually don't want to draw because you get it for free, and we're missing a low scale. So with Rabbit and Hamster, you can actually get you the low scale that you want, or the high scale if the only card you have in your hand is a low scale. So we activate the skill. You go Wolflame, pop it, get Metalfoes fusion, normal summon Rescue Rabbit, and then we have the choice of getting either the high or the low scale. In this case, we want the low scale because we have the high here. So we just go for 2 Gold Driver, fuse them together for Orichalc. We put the Rescue Hamster in the Pen zone so that we can use the other effect to banish it and add 2 penned monsters with the same name from the extra deck to our hand. Now we have the Gold Driver in hand. We can use the full Metalfoes fusion, draw a card, pen summon, and set up the board, and again, we're plussed here. So that was the like going first stuff that you can do with this deck, but how does this deck actually play into a board? So in this case, again, we have 4 Metalfoes, and I just set up a board where the opponent has a Tretch and like any monster set, Infinite Drag, Anchor Drill, obviously the most common set monster in the game. So this is just to show like what you can do playing around Tretch. Actually, I have 2 replays. There are 2 ways to go about it. This one is one I like to take is we set a scale, we get the fusion, set another scale, get another fusion, and fuse 2 from hand together for a Mithrilium. Why do we fuse from hand and not normal summon? Because we want 2 monsters in the grave for Mithrilium's effect, which shuffles 2 back in the grave in the deck and bounces a card. And the Metalfoes fusion we don't want here. Also, we can draw a Rescue Rabbit or something. If you have a Rescue Rabbit in hand, you want to keep the normal summon for it. You can also just say, okay, I don't want to normal summon a monster, and I shuffle back the Metalfoes fusion. That's also fine. I just opted to go with this line. So we use the effect, and the opponent says, okay, I just Tretch here because otherwise my Tretch is gone. So the effect of Myth still resolves. Both monsters go into the deck. Board is gone, and then Myth in the Grave actually triggers and special summons a Metalfoes monster. That's why we did the line where we used the, like where we popped 2 scales so that we have a monster in the penned zone. Now we get Wolflame, we shuffle back, we draw a card, and then here we actually have the high and low scale. We can pen summon the Rescue Rabbit, and that would be OTK. Obviously, you don't always have a Rescue Rabbit, but any monster would be OTK, and you also like, even if you had a Steel in here, which wouldn't be OTK, you have like a Metalfoes fusion, so we can do more plays from here. And you also have the pop of the Wolflame, so you could Metalfoes fusion into an Orichalc, use the Wolflame, pop this for a full Metalfoes fusion, and just you broke your board, your opponent's board, and you set up your board. All right. Now, the other way to go around it is something that I think Mike told me to do, is you go Metalfoes fusion, you fuse from hand, and you do the same thing here, where you put 2 monsters in the grave, but this time you set the full Metalfoes fusion. So if the opponent keeps the Tretch, you can use the Mithrilium to shuffle back 2 cards and actually bounce your own full Metalfoes fusion. So now, I told you at the beginning, you cannot activate the card, the quick play spell, because it was set this turn, but if you bounce it, it actually becomes active suddenly. So now we have the full Metalfoes fusion in hand. We can use the Metalfoes fusion in the grave, draw a card, use the scale, pen summon, we attack. Now the opponent uses the Treacherous Trap Hole to destroy our highest attack monsters. And what we can do here is we can dodge that by using full Metalfoes fusion, fusing the 2 targeted monsters away to get into Orichalc, and then the Mithrilium in the grave triggers, getting us back the Wolflame that we just fused. And now we have Orichalc, Wolflame, and we have double piercing and a lot of pressure on board, and this is usually an OTK. Okay, now, how do you go about playing versus PK though? Because they always have the Fog Blade, so whatever you put in the grave, you cannot shuffle back, so you're just wasting resources. So what you can do here is you pop the card, you get Metalfoes fusion, you normal summon the Gold Driver into the Mithrilium, and now you use the Mithrilium, and you can target the Metalfoes fusion in the grave actually to shuffle it back and bounce like the Levier. If they only have one background, you know it's the fog blade. You can also try to use that and force it out. But either way, they don't want us to like get rid of their resources, so we don't get the shuffle. Then we use the effect of Metalfoes fusion instead. Draw a card, play a scale, pop it, get the Metalfoes fusion back, pen summon, and then we can fuse those away. And then Mithrilium triggers, and we get the Wolflame back. So now we can actually attack with both monsters, and we also have the full Metalfoes fusion set up for the next turn. Now for the next replay, we just do the normal setup here. This is one of the tips I wanted to show you, and that is just how to go about Book of Moon on your Alcast. So obviously, if you have an Alcast on board and they Book of Moon it, your disruption is gone. But for decks that are very normal summon reliant, Alcast is very good. So how you protect it is by setting up this board. For example, you see Maya, you can just go Mithrilium for the float resource play, because what you want to do here is you can set this up, the normal summon, the channeler. On the summon, you will activate the full Metalfoes fusion, fuse both away from Alcast, and then what happens is the Mithrilium triggers and get you back a monster from board, from the grave or the extra deck, and then you can also chain the Alcast in the window of the summoning of Channeler. So they will react with the Book of Moon on the Alcast, but since you already targeted the Channeler to equip it, but our monster is face down now, the Channeler will go to the graveyard. It will not stay on the field because we already targeted to get equipped, but it cannot be equipped to a face down monster. So what happens here is we just get the monster, and our opponent is disrupted and cannot play the game. All right. Next one is a simple tip. Against Harpies again, they break, they only have Harpist and the Forbidden Lands. We have 2 rabbits, so this is not how I would play this hand, I just wanted to make an example. So let's say you have 2 Metalfoes and the Fusion on board versus Harpies, and there's a Forbidden Lands here. So what they can do if you activate the Fusion, they can use the lands to target one of your monsters, in this case the Steelen. And because this monster is now unaffected by other spells and traps, you actually cannot use this for the fusion. So what happens is, though, you already activated the Metalfoes fusion, so now you are obligated to resolve it as far as you can. And there's actually a monster that you can summon with Wolflame and the Rescue Rabbit. So you are obligated to go into Adamant, and you are very sad. All right. Next thing I want to show you is how to OTK through Battling Box of Veil or Kiteroid, 2 of my favorite cards in the game, not really. So what you can do here is you can go World Driver, the card, get Fusion, fuse 2 monsters into Mithrilium, then you pen summon, then you use Steelen to pop the other card and get full Metalfoes fusion, and now you do the play with Mithrilium to shuffle back and bounce. You can also use the Metalfoes fusion to draw, but then you're reliant on drawing a Metalfoe. Obviously, if you have Rabbit or Hamster, you have more resources, so you can actually use the Metalfoes fusion for the draw. I just wanted to keep it as simple as possible. So we bounce the full Metalfoes fusion, and we have Silvered and a Mithrilium. This is lethal on board. So what we do now is we go to battle phase. We attack with the Silvered first to play around Veil, because this gives them the least, this takes the least amount of damage off the board, just 1,700, and they have to Veil here. So they Veil here, they get the life back. The Mithrilium can just run over the Veil, and then we can fuse those 2 off for Orichalc, which triggers the Mithrilium and gets you back the Silvered. So we got rid of the Veil, and we have lethal on board here with double piercing. Now, with a Kiteroid, we would attack with the Silvered, they would let it through. We attack with the Myth, they would kite, and we go full Metalfoes fusion into this board, and then we attack again for game. Obviously, with the Gold Driver, this wouldn't play around Kiteroid, because they would Kiteroid the attack of Myth and Orichalc. So in this case, you would need the level 7, the 2400, to actually lethal through. But keep this in mind if you play against the Handtrap deck, that you can just use the full Metalfoes bounce to apply more pressure or lethal your opponent. All right, So for the last replay I wanted to show you, a lot of people ask me, how does this deck out the Lunalight Sabre Dancer? So let's set up the Sabre Dancer here, give it to our opponent. And with this hand, we actually have Rescue Rabbit and 3 Metalfoes. So this is a very good hand for resources. We have a lot of bodies to work with, 5 in total. So what we do here, so use Metalfoes Gold Driver, we pop the Light Barrier, and then